This is GagruleLive on Facebook. Today we have our friend Mihran Toumajan, and he is the Western Regional Director for Armenian Assembly of America. He's a great guy. He's always on the road. He's always fighting for Armenian cause. And the reason we want to talk to Mihran is because in October 16, 17, they had some very active event in Washington, D.C. So we're going to ask him to tell us about it. And also, you all probably know him. He's everywhere. And so, Mihran, thank you for coming. Welcome to gagrule.net. And please fill in about yourself, what I missed, and then we'll go to understanding what happened in October 16, 17.
Thank you, Wally. It's a pleasure to be on gagrule.net, GagruleLive. I want to start off by saying how grateful the Armenian Assembly of America, myself, are to you for very consistently sharing our press releases, our news, with your followers on social media, on your website. So we're really, really thankful for everything you do for our community to get the word out, not just about what the Armenian Assembly is doing with respect to advocacy, but all the really, really good news that's coming out of California, especially, which you cover so well. I wanted to real quickly clarify that our national advocacy conference was in September, not October.
Sorry.
I can't believe we're already in October, but it was a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, September 16th and 17th in Washington, D.C. And but before I get into that, I just want to, for those who are viewing or who will be viewing perhaps later when this is recorded, after it's recorded, the Armenian Assembly of America, we are a nationwide, nonpartisan, nonprofit advocacy organization headquartered in Washington, D.C., founded in 1972. We have regional offices in Armenia and in California, and I manage the Western Region office along with my colleague Alin Maksudian, who's our Western Region office manager. With respect to our staff, we have a large staff in Washington, D.C., and also in Yerevan. Our sister organizations, we have two sister organizations that grew out of the Armenian Assembly of America. One is the Armenian National Institute, or ANI, as its acronym is known, and it's directed by Dr. Ruben Adalian, who is a PhD historian, graduate of UCLA. He studied under Professor Richard Hovhannisyan at UCLA. He's an expert on the Armenian genocide. And ANI, of course, is dedicated to the research, reaffirmation, education, and documentation of the Armenian genocide. Our other sister organization is the Armenia Tree Project, which is founded by Carolyn Mugar. Carolyn Mugar is the president of the Board of Trustees of the Armenian Assembly of America as well. And the Armenia Tree Project this year is celebrating its 25th anniversary of its founding, so it's silver anniversary. And they're doing amazing work, and they have a wonderful forestry conference, really interesting conference that they're going to kick off in Armenia with the AUA Akopian Center for the Environment. So working with the AUA, they will be organizing a conference on the importance of reforestation for Armenia. So those are our two sister organizations who we value very much and we partner with regularly. The Armenian Assembly of America, as you mentioned earlier, Wally, we're just coming off a very successful national advocacy conference in Washington, D.C. We had a full day of conference panel discussions where we had subject matter experts who discussed a number of hot topics that are of concern to Armenians around the world, and Armenian Americans in particular. We had a panel of former U.S. ambassadors to Armenia and also a former Armenian ambassador to the United States. And that panel also included Armenia's current ambassador to the United States. And that panel discussed, U.S. Foreign policy with respect to Armenia.
Let me see. Can you hold it? Some of those pictures you sent me, but I just don't know which one would be those. So there is this panel.
Yeah, so that's the panel. Yeah, great. So in this shot, you have, of course, your viewers will notice Ambassador John Evans, who was U.S. ambassador to Armenia, and he was very courageous and brave to recognize the Armenian genocide and to use the G word, which obviously, as we know, went against the policy of the State Department, and unfortunately, it led to him being recalled back from Armenia, and then he ended up facing an early retirement. He is,
he's amazing.
Our most genuine champions. Armenian communities, Armenians in general, are our most genuine, principled champion when it comes to not just Armenian genocide, affirmation, and justice, but also on the Artsakh issue.
He was so comfortable in Armenia. I remember 2007, I met them at the restaurant in Sevan Lake. He was just alone himself. He drove there, and I asked him, I said, "What is your bodyguard?" Stuff like that. He says, "In Armenia, we don't need this." And he was so nice. We had watermelon there, and he's an amazing guy. I like him.
Yeah, and he's very skillful. He's very skillful in tying.
Sorry.
He's very skilled at tying the Armenian genocide to the conflict in Artsakh and the liberation of Artsakh 25 years ago. And warning American foreign policymakers, the media, and the international community that we could have had another genocide. The Armenians could have suffered another genocide had the people of Artsakh, our brothers and sisters in Artsakh and in Armenia, not risen up to the challenge and fought for Artsakh's liberation. So he ties that. He very skillfully ties Artsakh to the genocide from 1915 to 23. And then we had, as part of that panel, Ambassador John Heffern, who was U.S. ambassador roughly 5-6 years ago. Very skilled diplomat, and he talked about at the conference, at our panel discussion, the various waves of civic action in Armenia, especially by young people throughout the 2010s. If you recall, there were Electric Yerevan protests, and there were other calls for civic action, which ended up leading and paving the way to the 2018 movement for democratic change and the peaceful transition of government to the current administration, to the Pashinyan administration. So, he was there on the ground in previous
just quickly,
stages.
Can you go through each one of those in the panel?
So Ambassador Heffern is over on the left, and if I'm viewing the screen now, so he's on the left, and then Ambassador Evans with the beard, the white beard, he's over next to Ambassador Heffern. Ambassador Ruben Shugarian is middle. He was Armenia's first ambassador to the United States, so right after independence, and he served, very, very capably as Armenia's first ambassador. I had the fortune of volunteering at the Embassy of Armenia back in the 1990s when he was ambassador, and so I had a chance to see firsthand how the embassy functioned back in the mid to late 1990s. Very skilled diplomat. He is currently, Ambassador Shugarian is currently a professor at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, he is at the forefront of the exchange program where Armenian civil servants, not just diplomats, but civil servants, have an opportunity to study at Fletcher and earn a degree. It's a one-year program, but it's thanks to Aso Tavitian and his foundation that program exists, where Armenian civil servants can come to the States, can study at Fletcher, can meet counterparts from other countries as well who also study at Fletcher. So it's a great experience for them. Next to Ambassador Shugarian is Armenia's current ambassador in Washington, Varujan Nersesyan. He's also a very skilled diplomat and negotiator and a foreign policy professional.
What is his background before he became ambassador?
He's a career foreign service officer. He spent many years in Armenia's foreign ministry. He used to be the deputy chief of mission at the Armenian embassy in Washington several years ago. He's a very skilled diplomat, and Armenia is fortunate to have him in Washington. I believe right now it's a pretty critical moment for Armenia and for the advancing of U.S.-Armenia relations. There's a good window right now for the U.S. to really step up with respect to coming through for Armenia with greater assistance to Armenia, annual assistance that Congress, of course, recommends, and fortunately, through as a result of the work that we do as an organization and Armenian advocates do in Washington, and the work we do with our friends in the Congressional Armenian Caucus, the leadership of the caucus. Fortunately, there's been an upswing in U.S. assistance to Armenia over the past fiscal year, and we could talk about that later in the show.
Who's the next?
And then on the other corner is the co-chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Armenian Assembly of America, Van Krikorian. He's an attorney based in New York City, or in New York, and he used to be a staff member of the Armenian Assembly many years ago. He is now a co-chairman of our Board of Trustees, and so Van moderated that discussion on U.S. foreign policy vis-a-vis Armenia. And so it was a very interesting discussion. Questions were asked by the audience.
So this was the first day?
That was the first day. That was the first panel of the first day.
Okay, so
we had a couple other panels as well.
Here is next. Just quickly go through this.
Right. So on the second day of the conference, that's what we called the Hill Day. We were on Capitol Hill. We had in this photo we have members of the California delegation, along with Brian Arduni, Executive Director of the Armenian Assembly of America. So in this meeting, they met with Congressman Adam Schiff, and we had one of our delegates who's in the photo is a constituent of Congressman Schiff. That's Arthur Kokosian, who is the director of the American Armenian Rose Float Association and does a wonderful job with his friends and colleagues in producing the Rose Float, the Armenian Rose Float that we're all familiar with and we're thankful for. It's something that's seen by millions of viewers around the world. The annual Rose Parade and the floats that take part in the parade.
I wish all Armenia contribute to that, but not too many do.
Well, yeah, and they'll be having a float again, maybe not this coming January, but preparing for the following January. In that photo, we also have our volunteer state chair for the state of California, Valina Albabian. She's standing next to Congressman Schiff, and her daughter, Lori, is also on the other side of Congressman Schiff. And so Valina is based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and she is our very capable volunteer state chair for California. The Armenian Assembly has a group of state chairs in roughly half of the states of the United States, and very, very thankful for their service in their respective states. They do a wonderful job in, keeping ties with many members of Congress, especially in areas where there are sizable communities of Armenians, and so Valina does a wonderful job as our California state chair. So that was on the second and third day of our conference when we were on the Hill and had a chance to meet with members.
This one
was with the two. This was a great meeting. This was with the two senators of Nevada, the U.S. senators, Catherine Cortez Masto, who's got the red jacket on, and Jackie Rosen, who has the black jacket on. And of course, as you know, Wally, the Armenian community in Nevada is growing. A lot of Californians are moving to Nevada for jobs, and property values obviously are comparatively more economical in Nevada. And so a lot of Armenians are moving out there. There's a growing community. Folks are moving out there from the Midwest and elsewhere as well. So it was important for us to have this opportunity to meet with the two Nevada senators, and we were grateful for the opportunity. They have a morning coffee on some Wednesday mornings, and we were invited to attend the coffee and had a chance to speak with both privately and also take a group picture. And in this picture, we have our Southern California Regional Council board member, Jim Melikian, who's in the photo in the Hawaiian shirt. And he's known as the Popcorn Man. Many people know him here in Southern California. He's an advocate for child nutrition programs in public schools. And David Ojakian, who is one of our Northern California Regional Council board members. He's also in the photo.
Okay, so next, let's see here.
This was another panel discussion. So this on the first day during the conference, and in this panel, the participants discussed the importance of advocacy in general. Why be an advocate? Why advocate for things that you're passionate about? And of course, with a focus on the Armenian realm and issues of priority concern to Armenians. So in this panel, we had, if you're looking from left to right, we had Keith Nahigian, who is a co-founder of Nahigian Strategies, which is a public affairs firm headquartered in Washington, D.C., and with a recent office opened up in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Nahigian brothers, Keith is an alumnus of our internship program, our 42 years and going strong summer internship program in Washington, D.C. A few of Keith's siblings also participate in the program like him. And Keith Nahigian was a senior member of President Trump's campaign back in 2016. He joined the campaign in the summer of 2016 and was very effective in the work that he did, which centered more on public relations, which is his expertise. Keith's brother and fellow co-founder at Nahigian Strategies, Ken Nahigian, was in charge of President Trump's transition after President Trump was elected.
It's amazing. You remember all those things on your head.
Ken took over for Rick Dearborn, who was the original head of the transition. And so both brothers are highly respected in Washington, D.C. Ken, in this panel, Ken gave some really astute, observations and recommendations on PR strategy and how to market a brand, a product, or an issue, well in this day and age, in the digital day and age that we live in. So his recommendations were taken very seriously by the audience, by myself, for example, and how we can have a better messaging when it comes to our issues, more effective messaging. He was on a panel with Michigan representative from the State House of Representatives of Michigan, Mari Manoukian, who was elected in 2018 to the Michigan State House. She's a wonderful young lady, very active in the Michigan Armenian community, and her district, which includes towns of Birmingham and Bloomfield Township. These are areas that have a pretty substantial population of Armenians, very active politically as well, very active in the community. And so Mari is a wonderful representative of her community overall and of the Armenian constituents that are in her district. And she is a bridge for the Armenian community to fellow elected officials in Michigan, like Governor Whitmer, for example, who was also elected in 2018, and several other senior officials in Michigan. So she's a wonderful person, and had some really interesting insights to share about advocacy. I mean, she herself, was an advocate. She has a background in foreign policy and international relations. She worked at the State Department before, making a run for the State House. And we're really, really happy that she's, rising in state politics, and hopefully we'll see her one day in Congress as well. And then next to Mari Manoukian, many of your viewers will recognize Adrin Nazarian, California State Assembly member.
He's a good man.
Very good man, and we were pleased to have Adrin join us as part of this panel. He, coming all the way from California to D.C. to participate in this panel, share his insights about, advocacy in Southern California in particular, and in Sacramento, and various issues that he's led the fight on in Sacramento.
He's a good man. I interviewed him at a Syrian event. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah, and very, very capable, very effective. Before he was elected to office, he served as chief of staff to then State Assembly member Paul Krikorian.
Oh, really?
And he himself rose up the ranks, Adrin, and so he's worked for many elected officials in the past. So he's very capable.
We're gonna move because you
he's
have
a bridge
lots
builder.
of pictures you sent me. So
yeah, and then on the corner we have Elise Kandarian Aronson. Elise was a chief of staff to Congressman Jim Saxton of New Jersey.
Oh.
She knows Capitol Hill and Congress very well, and she works in the private sector now as a vice president for government affairs for a major company that owns a lot of other companies. And she's very effective, a great speaker, great communicator, and she was the moderator of that session on the importance of advocacy.
All right, so you got this one.
We've got more photos from our meetings on the Hill. This was with Pete Stauber, who's a congressman from Minnesota. We didn't have any Minnesotans this year as part of our group, but Congressman Stauber was really gracious to meet with us. And he's a former hockey player, National Hockey League player and coach, and which is par for the course for Minnesota, which is very much into hockey. The whole state is into hockey, and it was very nice of him, very gracious for him to meet with us briefly.
And finally,
this is of course Congresswoman Jackie Speer. This was taken at the gala when we honored her right before the gala. She's an amazing woman, amazing life story, having survived the massacre at Jonestown in Guyana. when she was a staff member to Congressman Leo Ryan, who went to investigate the cult that was there in Jonestown, and she was shot.
Is she like had some Armenian blood or something?
She is, yeah, she is part Armenian, but for us she is an Armenian through and through, a champion of Armenians and Armenia's independence, and Artsak's right to independence, and Artsak's right to live and prosper and develop free from the aggression of its neighbor to the east. She is a very, very vocal champion of robust U.S. assistance to Armenia. It was her amendment back in June of 2019, earlier this year, that garnered not only fellow Democrats, overwhelming number of Democrats supported her amendment to add an additional $40 million in fiscal year 2020 U.S. assistance to Armenia. Her amendment actually garnered 42 Republicans in today's very hyper-partisan Washington to join her and support the additional $40 million to Armenia. So that's a pretty big deal, and that's partly because she is highly respected among some Republicans as well.
Is she Democrat or Republican?
She's a Democrat, but in today's, it's pretty amazing. In today's hyper-partisan Washington, there were roughly 267 members of Congress who supported her amendment to the FY 2020 Appropriations Act for $40 million in additional U.S. assistance to Armenia. That's a very big deal, and we're grateful, the Armenian Assembly and all Armenians, we're grateful to Congressman Speer for taking the lead on that, and for driving that, the importance of that, in light of Armenia's democratic transformation, in light of democratic strides in Armenia.
This is why this shows we created, because there are so many Armenians are doing so many good things, but yet most people don't even know about it, and this is why we are so grateful to you to come and present those people to the public, to see when people are sitting their home, there are some people out there working for Armenian cause. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I should say also in that photo is Amasya Zargarian, who does wonderful work for the Halo Trust in Washington, D.C. currently. Prior to working for Halo in Washington, D.C., he was with the Halo Trust in Artsakh, on the ground in Artsakh. And of course, the Halo Trust does life and limb saving work in Artsakh, removing the landmines that are still there, and all the various lethal ordinances that are still in the ground, left over there by Azerbaijan, remnants of the war from 25 years ago, also remnants of the 2016 four-day war. There's still plenty of demining work that needs to be done in Artsakh, and the Armenian Assembly, the Halo Trust, during our advocacy conference, during the days that we were on the Hill, we, especially on the Senate side, during our meetings with members of the U.S. Senate, we advocated for the Senate to join Congressman T.J. Cox of the Central Valley of California and his amendment, and to ensure that at least $1.5 million in continued U.S. funding to for demining efforts in Artsakh is maintained for fiscal year 2020. In previous years, the aid level for demining was slightly higher. It was roughly $5 to $6 million. We're going to try to get it back there next year, but for this year, we let it be known to Senate staff with whom we met. We met with several U.S. Senate staff members, Republican and Democrat, and emphasized the importance of continued U.S. demining assistance to Artsakh and the importance of that, and the great work that the Halo Trust does. And so Amasya and one of his colleagues was on the Hill with us on those 2 days, and we're really thankful that they advocated with us during the 2 days that we were on the Hill.
Great work.
This is David Bohigyan in the center. David Bohigyan is the highest ranking Armenian American civilian in the Trump administration. He is the CEO of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. OPIC is the acronym. And wonderful man. He visited Armenia as part of an OPIC delegation last year and saw firsthand, the democratic strides that Armenia's taken, the new administration's efforts to bring about domestic reforms, to enforce the rule of law, to make it easier for private entities to do business in Armenia. And so OPIC facilitated recently for a mortgage company from the West called First Mortgage to set up shop in Armenia. And OPIC, what it does is it works with private sector companies to co-finance major projects in various countries around the world, and very active in Latin America, very active in Asia and Africa, and we're hopeful that OPIC, will work with some private sector companies and look at specific sectors where there may be a good match. Whether that's energy, Armenia's energy sector, whether it's Armenia's pharma sector, its biotech sector, which is just growing, recently growing in Armenia. Various areas where a large investment or a fairly large investment is required, and that's where OPIC can come through. This is from our advocacy conference. We have Dr. Anthony Saroyan to my left and David Ojakian to my right.
Okay. We definitely have to bring you back. You got so much stuff.
Well, yeah, this was really, it was great. We had over 100 congressional meetings. We had, roughly 75 delegates, on the Hill on those 2 days, and going into various offices. We had representation from 18 different states for our advocacy conference, and for the first time this year, we had advocates from New Mexico and the state of Washington, and from Florida, and a few other states where we didn't have representation. For example, last year when we had our 2018 advocacy conference. So we're really excited about that. We had some immediate results as well, Wally. Immediate results were, 2 new members of the Congressional Armenian Caucus from the state of Arizona, Congressman David Schweikert, who is doing great work for Armenia, and he has an excellent record on Armenian issues, and Congressman Paul Gosar, also from Arizona. Both are Republicans from Arizona, and we're really, really happy and excited that they agreed to join the Congressional Armenian Caucus. So yeah, so that in essence sums up our conference. I'm happy to take more questions if you have time, Wally.
No, we're running off the time short, but really, I I admire you. You remember all those people, their name, their activities. It's great. This is why we had to bring Mihran back to tell us all this. I'm sure we'll continue. You're gonna come back and tell us more all your activity, and you're really doing great job. And Armenian people should be very appreciative of your hard work.
Yeah, this is what I'm passionate about doing. All those people that you mentioned in the photos, they're all very important for us. Many are our activists, are members of the Armenian Assembly, are volunteer, activists, and then we have, subject matter experts, and then elected officials. They're all equally important to us, and the job that they do day in and day out, advocating for Armenia, for stronger U.S.-Armenian relations, advocating for Artsak's, right to exist and to prosper, and hopefully right to be independent. Those are they're very important for us. So thank you very much for showing some of those photographs as well from our conference. That means a lot to us.
It is our pleasure, and I thank you for joining us this morning. And it was very delightful, very informative, and you're welcome to come back anytime you want. So
thank you, Wally. Thank you
for
having me. This was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish you all the best and your organization. So there you go. Next week, I'm going to be on the road to Armenia to this World Technology. There is over 70 countries are presented there from all technology experts, including Kardashian. She will be invited. So we'll see. Maybe we'll bump into Kardashian, but I doubt it because they bring them on stage, they take them off the stage. And thank you very much. We'll bring you updates from Yerevan as much as we can. Stay tuned. And again, Mihran, thank you. And
thank you, Wally.
We'll see you.
Appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.